While I've got this set up, I thought I'd demonstrate what I can do from the transmitter. So basically when I want to arm, right now I can't arm the system because I don't have a GPS fix, but I can throw this switch and it tells me it's armed. And then while I'm flying, I can throw a switch to return to home.
Return to launch.
You can see that the flight mode changed to acro, but it's in a return to home mode now, so it'll fly itself back. Now I just disarmed. I can also switch into a couple of different modes. Auto tune is where I can set up some rates. That's a one-time thing that I'll do on my maiden flight. That also takes place in acro mode. Normally I'm in horizon mode. I don't know why it didn't tell me I'm in horizon mode. There's an auto level mode. Oh, because that's the default. Auto level will also set some trim rates or some trim settings so that it flies straight and level. And then once I save after my maiden flight, I can reuse the switch for something else because that's also a one-time setup. And then I can switch into a different flight mode. I can go into manual mode, which means just any stick input I put in will go straight to the controls, the servos. So it's just like flying regularly. Switch to horizon mode, that's a stabilized mode. So if I take my fingers off of the sticks, it'll fly straight and level, it'll level itself out. And that's all done through GPS and all these level settings that I would do on my initial flight. So it knows when it's straight and level, it can right itself. And then there's loiter, which means it's a loiter mode, which means wherever the plane happens to be at the time I throw that switch, it'll go into a mode where it'll just circle around that point. So it marks the GPS coordinate and then it just flies around. So if I get distracted or something, I can put it in loiter mode, let it fly around by itself until I'm ready to come back and focus and put it back into horizon mode and fly it back. Then there's black box. I can turn that on and it starts recording flight control data. So it's like an actual black box. There's an SD card in the flight controller that records all the control inputs and status of the flight controller and whatever's going on. So if you have an incident, you can download that data after a crash or an incident and see what went wrong. You can analyze the data. Then there's just a beeper mode where it'll activate a beeper. I don't have that installed yet. I don't have that on the Dart. I may not put one in there, but it'll be in other aircraft. So if the plane goes down somewhere and I'm hunting for it, I'm out on foot trying to find it, I can turn that and activate a loud beeper. Then there's different displays on the OSD. I can switch it into this mode, which I'll do on my maiden flight to see the different roll rate, pitch rate, and yaw rate settings that come about in the auto tune sequence that I will go through to get it tuned. And then the auto level settings will show up down here. Then I can switch back to my normal view. And this has a bunch of information. There's my battery voltage, power usage. There's remaining percentage of my battery estimated. There's some temperatures that are in the barometer. They're getting up kind of high there, but that's in the actual board, the flight controller board. I want to hook up some other thermometer sensors that I can put in the plane so I know the interior temperature, and maybe one by the ESC so I can monitor that. I don't know, whatever I want to do. This shows how long the thing has been turned on. That's just since I applied power to the flight controller. If I then take off, when I can activate this, arm this, it'll go into an auto launch mode. And then once it launches, it'll tell me how this time will switch to a different time to tell me how long it's been flying. And then I've got like distance to home, miles per hour, altimeter. There's the barometer altimeter, and then there's mean sea level, whatever, MCL, MSL. So there's one of them's from the GPS telling me how high I am above sea level, and the other one's above ground level from the barometer. And there's the name of the airplane. Here's my link information. So the transmitter is operating at 10 milliwatts, and that'll change. I have a dynamic setting on there. The further out it goes, if the receiver is sending back telemetry, so if the power level gets low, it'll say, hey, bump up your power on the transmitter. I can go up to 2 watts, which requires an external battery on my transmitter, but I can go up to 2 watts there. Right now I'm at 10 milliwatts because I'm standing pretty close. And then the, I don't know what that is. I think it might be signal to noise ratio. It's minus 3 dB, or maybe that's the signal strength, RSSI, minus 32 dB. And then there's link quality, which is actually the more important metric there. That just determines how much, what is the quality of the signal that's being received from the transmitter. So this is telling me it's getting 100% of all the data packets that I'm sending it. All the control signals are coming through. So if that starts dropping down to like below 70, you probably ought to think about turning around, because that's telling you, you've got, if it's 70, then there's 7 out of 10 control packets that you're sending it that it's getting, and 3 of them are getting dropped. And that can drop off pretty rapidly, I think, once you get out at distance. But then I can also switch what camera I'm using. So there's the run cam. Let me turn off the OSD. That's the other feature of the OSD. I can turn it off. So if I just want to look and see a clear view, I can just look through that. But then I've got my FPV camera, which is sitting on top, and I can pan left and right. So you can see the wing there. It swings far enough to the left. It's a full 180 that it can see the wing. So I can do that, and then I can switch to my run cam, which doesn't have pan, obviously. It's in the nose of the plane. So I can switch back and forth between views here. And then if I want to see my telemetry, I can switch that on. And I also have a switch here where I can turn off the transmitter, the video transmitter. So if I'm like getting low on power and I'm struggling to make it back and it's in return to home, turn off the transmitter, conserve energy. If I don't need it, I don't need it. If it's flying on its own, I don't need to see where it's going. It's useful though. It's kind of risky because then I don't have all that telemetry saved on my DVR recording. So, but I do have on the back of the transmitter here, the Crossfire module has the GPS coordinates. So it knows at least where the plane was the last time it received a signal. But turning off the power of the video transmitter can help me go dark if I want to go stealth, or to just conserve power. If I know I'm flying autonomously out somewhere, I don't have autonomous programs in here yet, but I can turn that off. And then whenever I want, I can turn it back on, switch back to my FPV view. If I want to see a clear view, turn off the OSD, on-screen display. Want to look around, wave at myself, hi. And like that there. So it's pretty cool. I just have to get familiar with the switches on here so I know what does what while I'm flying, because I'm going to have goggles on. So I need to know where my switches are and what they do. So that's my training. That's where I am right now. I'm just kind of in training because I just got these configured where I want them. There's a couple more features I'll be adding in the future, possibly, or at least on that plane. And I want to be familiar with where all my controls are on the radio so I can switch them blind while I've got the goggles on. At least this one, oops, that's the wrong one. See, I need to learn. At least this one I know I can switch between, and then my OSD, I can turn that on and off and look at these settings here. And I'm going to probably, after the maiden flight, once I get these are like my rates, the roll, pitch, and yaw rates, and then the level settings for roll, pitch, and yaw. And this pitch angle and roll angle just to let me know what it's doing. But once I get all these set, then I don't need this view anymore, and I can program a different alternate view, a more minimal view. A lot of this information I've got on here is experimental. I don't probably need all that. By the way, it's also got the current time that comes from the GPS. And then I've got the horizon indicator and the GPS coordinates, these temperatures here. And a lot of this stuff, maybe I don't even really need. I can switch to a more minimalistic view where I just have maybe my signal strength and battery and my maybe direction to home. This little indicator here tells me which direction is home. It's flashing because it doesn't have a home setting yet. It doesn't have a GPS fix, so it can't get one. Generally, anything you see flashing in here needs attention. So this is telling me there's no satellites. The GPS isn't picking up any satellites, which is unusual because usually I get a GPS lock by now, and it got the time from the GPS, but it's been on for 41 minutes and I still don't have a GPS lock. So I don't know what's going on there. I just installed this switch to be able to turn the camera on and off. So I'm wondering if maybe that has some effect on it. I don't know, but I also have this switch to switch between cameras. Actually, that's built into the flight controller, so that's not it. Oh, there's a DVR attached to this camera. So maybe that's interfering. I don't know. It's not recording right now. But typically, like if my battery gets down to 14 volts, it'll start flashing, or 14.2 volts. It'll start flashing saying, you know, you better start coming down. And my link quality drops, it'll start flashing. My DBM, my RSSI drops, it'll start flashing. I don't know. If I lose GPS, I'm surprised the GPS coordinates aren't flashing, but it's the GPS satellites that is flashing. So I don't know. Anyway, that's what I have, and that's what I can control from the radio, and I think it's pretty cool. And also I can tell what my battery voltage is on the airplane.
16.7 volts.
I don't know why that reports 16.7 when that reports 16.5. This one's coming from Crossfire. This one's coming from the flight controller. So that's interesting that it's off by 0.2 volts.
7.4 volts.
And that's the voltage of the battery in my transmitter. And these batteries are getting old. They're not holding a charge quite like they used to. I don't trust this jumper radio anymore because switches just stop working and I have to pop it open to fix the ribbon cables to reseat them. So I'm not flying this until I get my new radio, and they're telling me 4 to 10 weeks more than it's been so far, and I ordered it in January 26th or something like that. So it's going to be a while before this flies. I could have technically maybe gone out and flown it today, but I wasn't comfortable with it, and I'm not feeling well. Just not feeling well. So kind of glad I didn't go flying, but I'm missing it. So, you know, I'm glad I didn't go because I'm not feeling well, but I wish I could have gone because I'd rather be doing that. Anyway, I think that pretty much covers it. Also, there's messages down here that the flight controller will tell you if something's wrong, like it's waiting for GPS fix. That's why I can't arm the thing. I don't know why it doesn't have a fix. Anyway, that's it.